Welcome back to another installment of Strangest Locations. Today we're going to talk about Australia's Port Arthur.
Port Arthur, located in Tasmania's Tasman Peninsula, which is unceded Aboriginal land, was established in 1830 as a penal settlement.
For those of you who don't know what a penal colony is, it's a remote settlement where prisoners are exiled and separated from the general population. They were used to force prisoners to work in economically underdeveloped areas. Right.
So that's not good. But, I guess they were prisoners or criminals.
Right.
Initially, Port Arthur was a timber station, but soon became a place for the transportation of convicts, especially those considered hardened criminals. The settlement was known for its harsh conditions and strict discipline during its peak during the 1840s. Port Arthur housed over 1,000 convicts and featured significant infrastructure, including a church, a hospital, and various workshops. The site was also notable for its innovative rehabilitation programs. With the decline of transportation in the 1850s, the settlement was gradually abandoned and officially closed in 1877. Over time, it transformed into a historical site and tourist attraction, recognized for its well-preserved building and role in Australia's colonial history.
Port Arthur is marked by several tragic events through its history. The settlement was notorious for its brutal treatment of convicts, including hard labor, solitary confinement, and severe punishments, which actually led to many deaths from illness and despair. Several convicts attempted to escape, resulting in violent confrontations. Many were recaptured, and some faced execution or harsh reprisals. In 1895, a major fire destroyed many of the historic buildings, leading to significant loss of heritage and contributed to the site's decline. And more recently, in 1996, a gunman killed 35 people and injured 23 others in a mass shooting at the site, leading to nationwide gun control reform. These events contributed to the complex and often somber legacy and the haunted reputation of Port Arthur.
Aside from the usual more common things you typically hear, it is said that Port Arthur is surrounded by some kind of invisible force field that radiates from it, causing sometimes physical reactions, but most reported it being more of a feeling, like deep melancholy or overwhelming sadness. But it's also said you can feel something or someone around you the entirety of the time you're there. People have also reported being touched or hearing strange and sometimes unnerving sounds. The parsonage is said to be the most haunted. Reverend George Eastman and his wife and their 10 children lived in the parsonage from 1857 to 1870.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah. Soon after his death is when it said the hauntings began, starting with unusual lights, followed by banging, knocking, and footsteps. Not long after, there was a full-body apparition of a man seen. Since then, people continue to hear footsteps and loud bangs, see apparitions, and have even claimed to be strangled. So it sounds like not a fun place to be, huh?
So, in the late 1800s, after he passed, the new reverend that moved into the parsonage, a parsonage is the house attached to the church that usually the preacher or the reverend lives in. Right. They moved in, and one of the staff, one of the maids or whatever, she saw the apparition and said he had a dagger. It made her faint.
Oh, wow.
Yes, very scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the only spooky building either. Ooh, this one's creepy to me. The magistrate's house was also the senior surgeon's quarters. Down in the basement was this charming dissection room that featured a large limestone table. Some have claimed to see disembodied heads and faces on the walls in there, which is creepy. And I have a lot of questions. Was it live dissections or a torture method? Or are we talking about autopsies? What are we talking about? There's also an area that was used for psychological torture in place of physical punishment and the separate prison. When in their cells, they could go days without seeing light or hearing any sounds. The guards wore booties so you couldn't hear their footsteps, and they used sign language to communicate with each other. If they weren't in their cells, they were made to wear hoods or masks at all times. Instead of rehabilitation, they were subjected to social, visual, and auditory isolation, a method referred to as the silent system. Many inmates would, in turn, develop severe mental illnesses and have to be transferred immediately from there to the asylum they had to open next door. Or they died. Some offenders would resort to murder, capital offense, to receive the death penalty to escape being sent to Port Arthur or to just get out of the separate prison. Those that died in Port Arthur were sent to the Isle of the Dead, totaling in 1,646 graves. Of those graves, the only ones marked are the 180 graves of prison staff and military personnel. People report a sinister feeling inside, a sense of heavy sadness in the cell where an inmate named William Carter took his own life. And it said that hundreds of hooded inmates wandered the halls at night. And on the Isle of the Dead, it said that because they had been buried without their last rites and without even a name for that matter, the spirits will often rise from their final resting place, searching for someone that will recognize them, which is sad.
Yeah, sad. On April 28th, 1996, Martin Bryant killed 35 people and wounded 23 others at Port Arthur, one of the deadliest massacres in Australia's history, leading to changes in Australians' gun law. I bring it up because the kind of negative energy can imprint on a place and probably contributes to the haunted reputation of Port Arthur in general.
Right.
I mean, if lots of people are getting killed there, obviously it's going to have a negative negative air of
it imprints and it leaves that negative vibe, you know what I mean? Like, you can feel it. Mm-hmm. It's an energy that like imprints there and you can feel it.
They also offer a 90-minute lantern lit ghost tour and a guided cemetery tour. It's pretty popular, being that it's one of the most haunted locations in Australia, so that whole continent. So like one of the most haunted places.
I hear specifically the parsonage is one of the most haunted buildings in Australia.
Yeah, well, you always hear like Australia was like a penal colony, you know, like people were sent there as a reform from England and wherever else. So I mean, starting out had to be pretty nasty, you know.
Yeah, and some of the websites that you go to, like research it or whatever, they bring up that it was like an unceded Aboriginal territory.
This is basically
taken from their indigenous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just like, we'll go over there and use that land.
Yeah, we'll take that. It sounds like Europeaners.
Yeah.
Don't hate me.
No, that sounds like everybody, you know, not just Europeaners. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. And this has been another strange location.
Bye.
Bye.